Would Gina Haspel be a good director, and should the Senate confirm her? We get two views. John Rizzo had a 34-year career at the CIA. From 2001 to 2002, and from 2004 to 2009, he served as the agency's chief legal officer. He and 52 former senior intelligence and national security officials wrote the Senate in support of Haspel's nomination. And Stephen Xenakis is a retired Army brigadier general. He was one of 109 retired general officers who wrote a different letter urging the Senate to reject Gina Haspel if senators confirm she played a role in detainee abuse. He is also a psychiatrist who's counseled some of the men subjected to the CIA's tortured techniques. And thank you both for being here. Stephen Xenakis, let me start with you. We heard Gina Haspel defend herself today. She said, look, this was a product of the time. Department of Justice approved it. The White House approved these so-called enhanced interrogation techniques. What's wrong with that defense?
Well, she also said a couple other things, which is that when you're on the front lines, you're expected to make the tough decisions. And she and the others were in the position, and any responsible leader, if he's a general or if he's a senior leader of CIA, is expected to make the tough decisions under tough conditions. They don't panic. They walk through it in a systematic, methodic way. They know their profession, they know the work, and they know what's right. And I think this was a lapse in leadership on her part. It was a lapse in knowing what was right. It was a lapse in knowing what was effective. And even though she had some legal cover, and you can get legal cover almost in various ways, it still didn't make it right or effective. And so I think she failed particularly in not exercising good leadership and good judgment.
John Rizzo, was it neither right nor effective?
Well, it was effective. Couple things, Nick. First of all, I was in a leadership position at CIA during those years. I was involved in the program from beginning to end. Ms. Haspel, I have to be circumspect here because I know that she was a little, couldn't get into a lot of her precise responsibilities. But I will say this for Ms. Haspel, she was not in a leadership position at the agency, and certainly was not in a leadership position like I was in the creation and approval and implementation of those techniques. So, I mean, I think that's important to keep in mind.
But Stephen Xenakis, does that exonerate her just because she wasn't in the leadership?
I don't think so. I mean, again, you're on the front lines. You have to make the tough decisions, and you're in a situation where there aren't people there. You're right. You're facing the problem, and you've got to exercise a judgment that you know is best and is going to work. Interestingly, also, in listening to her testimony, she never answered directly if this was effective or not. I forget which senator asked her, do you think it worked? And she didn't say, well, it works or it doesn't work. What she said was, well, we got eventually the information we needed from the captives. So it's not clear to me that at this point, which I think is important, she may in fact recognize that these tactics are not effective.
Well, may I speak to that? I will say for myself, and I've said this before publicly, including in a memoir I wrote a few years back, that the program was effective. I mean, aside from its apart from its questions of morality or even legality, the program produced results. The difficult part of this is that, it is unknowable if whether these detainees would have yielded the same information without resorting to these admittedly harsh techniques. And I think that is unknowable. And I believe Ms. Haspel made that point at the hearing. So it's a complicated, complex, difficult issue.
It certainly is, but I think we heard Democrats say today that this is about more than whether it was effective or not. It was about whether it was right and the morality. And you believe that it just simply wasn't there, or at least her responses weren't there to those answers?
Responsibility wasn't there. It's clearly immoral, and it's clearly illegal for everybody.
John Rizzo, does it matter if it's immoral?
Well, first of all, it was not illegal at the time. Now, a program like that could not take place today because Congress subsequently, a few years back, basically prohibited these harsh techniques.
Right, but does it matter if it's immoral?
Oh, sure, I mean, that's a fact. For what it's worth, I believe that there was a moral imperative after 9/11, both from the American people and from Congress, that the CIA would not, could not, must not allow a second major attack on the homeland to happen. I mean, as we all remember, those are very perilous times. So in terms of the morality, I believe then, I believe now, CIA had a moral imperative on behalf of the American people to protect the country, to protect thousands of people, innocent people from being murdered, and to use those techniques within the law that would elicit the kind of critical intelligence that could prevent another imminent major attack on this country.
Stephen Xenakis, I want to get your thoughts quickly on something else. You have, you're a psychiatrist who has seen some of these detainees who were subjected to some of these techniques. What's the impact on them?
Oh, it's injured them. There's evidence of clear injury and damage, which is, I think, is a further evidence that these tactics really were torture and they were brutal. And let me make it clear from our standpoint, and I sit with a number of philosophers and lawyers at a Center for Ethics and Rule of Law at Penn Law School, torture is illegal. Now, there may be legal opinion that says what you're doing is cleared, but torture is illegal. And this was brutal, and it injured these people, and in every ways it was torture.
And I just want to get one last point in. Gina Haspel would be the first woman CIA director, also the first operator, the first clandestine officer in more than 50 years. Does that matter?
Well, on the first point, it's certainly a good thing that a woman is finally appointed CIA director. I don't think that, frankly, affects your qualification about whether she'd be confirmed or not. But it is quite important, in my view, to have a career intelligence officer, especially an operations officer, to head the CIA. I worked under 11 CIA directors. None had the kind of experience that Ms. Haspel had. And I'm telling you, on the inside, it is much easier and more efficient for the agency and for the country to have a CIA director in the chair who doesn't have to have on-the-job training.
John Rizzo, Stephen Xenakis, thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
That could be.